Hi everyone, I'm Cass and this is the Mind Your Being podcast, a space where we'll explore health and what it really means to care for our whole being, our physical, mental and emotional health. Each episode you'll hear from leading health and wellness experts or everyday people who share powerful insights and lived experience. And sometimes it'll be just me, sharing thoughts, tools and reflections from my own journey. More than anything, I want you to feel supported, encouraged and empowered to make informed health choices that feel right for you. If this sounds good to you, please enjoy. Today we're thrilled to welcome Dr Justin Keogh, an esteemed exercise scientist and Associate Dean of Research at Bond University in Queensland. With nearly 25 years of experience, Dr. Keogh is also Head of Program for Exercise and Sports Science. His research has been instrumental in demonstrating how targeted exercise programs can combat age-related muscle loss and improve quality of life. Dr. Keogh's research spans across athletic populations to demonstrating ways to improve the health and well-being of older adults. Good morning, Justin.
Thanks very much for having me, Cass.
Thank you. Today I've asked you to come on to talk about the benefits of exercise, especially across the lifespan, but also as we're aging, and also the importance of maintaining muscle mass for healthy aging. From your perspective as an exercise physiologist, what are some of the key ways regular exercise improves our physical health? And what's actually happening inside the body to create those benefits?
Thanks for the question, Cass. So I suppose if you look at it, thousands of years of humans being on the earth, we have been developed to be physically active through the entire lifespan. Our life is dependent on our ability to go get food, prepare food, to stay warm, to look after others, etc. So our modern societies, perhaps of some of the technological advances, makes life so much easier. Getting food can just be a couple of steps to the fridge. So unfortunately, in our developed society where we take so many things for granted with technology and access to food and so on, it's now got to the point that the aging process can accelerate these physical declines. Also, exercise is often required. And again, in some sort of countries where people still have a very traditional way of life where they are out in their gardens, on their farm, preparing food, going to get water or things like that, they are doing that exercise all the time. So some of those areas where people live to 100 years of age, basically they're doing these things naturally every day. But unfortunately for most of us, like I've got a pretty sedentary job, although I do have a stand-up desk to get a little bit of non-sitting activity. Exercise becomes more important, and particularly as we age, the biggest sort of changes that can occur that reduce our mobility and our independence is the loss of muscle mass, strength, and physical function. So exercise and diet and a few other things become crucial to maintain as much of that as we age. And to a point, the more of, say, muscle or strength and bone mass that we accumulate in our younger years, then that natural age-related decline should hopefully still be at a level that we do maintain that physical function. Whereas if you're relatively weak in your 20s and 30s, that natural age-related decline or low levels of muscle mass may get you into positions in your 60s or 70s even, where an injury such as a broken hip and weeks in bed are potentially life-threatening.
And apart from the physical benefits, what impact does exercise have on other areas of our well-being? For example, mental health, stress, our sleep.
So mentally, just even simple things such as going for a walk for many people, including myself, can be a great way just to unwind after a stressful day at work. Can be a great way to start the day as well. Again, sunrises or sunsets for many of us are just great ways to recharge the batteries of life in a way. Many things we can do in exercise can be social activities as well. So even taking your dog for a walk, that sort of socialization of a pet or if a partner or a friend is great. Going to the gym, playing sport, again, those opportunities, particularly as we get older and maybe even retire, our circle of friends becomes much reduced. So finding some physical activities that you can do in a group can then broaden that friendship group and reduce things such as isolation and loneliness that can lead to anxiety, depression, and other sort of mental health challenges. So there are a host of benefits, and even for conditions like depression, some of the evidence emerging is that a variety of forms of exercise can be just as effective, if not more so, than the typical medications you might be prescribed, as well as giving you a host of other benefits as well.
Yeah, I heard that regarding the efficacy of exercise compared to the standard antidepressants. And
Mm.
it's free. There's no other side effects to you as well. So even if it complements your other therapy, it's worth a shot.
And so many parts of Australia are just so beautiful. So just find some of those local locations around you, be it walks along the beach, some forested areas. And if there's hills, again, those hills do enable you to get some extra resistance into that walk as well, walking up and down hills. So, and cognitively, walking or hiking in those sort of areas is cognitively challenging. You've always got to be scanning your environment. Are there any potential risks? Even in Australia, things such as snakes potentially, kangaroos bouncing across a path, maybe. So, exercise where your brain and the sensory systems are highly active as well have also been found to have greater cognitive benefits as well. Whereas if you're just sitting on an exercise bike in a gym or in your spare room and you're sort of zoned out, those cognitive benefits, while still there to a point because of the blood flow to the brain, may not be quite as pronounced.
That's a really good point. You get the extra benefits when you're outdoors. Not always possible, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And it feels for most of us less like exercise.
Yeah, you're taking in
So,
the scenery.
yeah, one of the big things with exercise or physical activity in general, sample a host of things and find what works for you.
Yeah, that's what I always say to people. You don't have to be a runner or you don't necessarily have to go to the gym. You got to find what you're going to be consistent at, but you got
Mhm.
to enjoy it.
And unfortunately, as we do get a bit older, like I'm 51, played a lot of different sports, done a lot of exercise, you do accumulate a few little injuries along the way. So again, you then have to be a little bit careful and perhaps modify or change some of those activities that you've performed as well. So, but again, that can be a new lease of life and it can be that extra challenge or new exciting thing in your life. I've looked back at all the different sports I've done and I've loved doing all of them. And I miss some that I can't do anymore. But then I also think of the things I'm doing now I would have loved to done when I was younger as well, but couldn't do them all at the same time.
I think since we spoke last time too, and we were talking about as we get older, social opportunities can decline. I found
Mm,
out about walking football in our South Coast community here. The soccer body runs a walking football tournament,
mm,
and I think it's from aged 40 and then even over 60. They have
mm.
men's teams, women's teams, mixed teams. And my son went to referee a tournament, and I was like, "Where are you going?" I didn't even know about this. And I'm like, wow, they get to keep social, they get to keep moving. Such a great idea.
And all the banter that comes with sport. I
Yeah.
kicked 3 goals against you last week. Yeah, so there's more and more sports now creating modifications. I used to play Masters Australian football after never playing it growing up. I grew up playing league and a bit of union. So that was a great learning curve. But again, the rules are modified in different ways to reduce some of the risks. But yeah, things like walking football, I think there's walking netball as well. So there's a range of different sports out there. Pickleball is obviously going through the roof. So particularly if you play doubles pickleball, the number of steps, you really don't need to run on a doubles pickleball court. So again, you can play that sport many years, even if you've got some sort of knee sort of issues that prohibit you from running. So more and more sports are now looking at modifications that enable people who are older to participate, but also people with different physical or cognitive disabilities as well. So parasport, adapted sport, there's some great opportunities for people across all of the community pretty much.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Okay, can you explain to us what sarcopenia is
Mhm.
and why it's a concern as we're getting older?
So the definition of sarcopenia has changed a little bit recently. It's now focused on muscle strength, muscle mass, and then physical function. So previously it had focused on muscle mass, but now it's muscle strength. So if a person is assessed for sarcopenia, the simple test is a hand grip strength test that many people have done even in high school. In Australia, 26 kilograms is the male threshold and 16 kilograms for women. So if you are less than those scores, you are at risk for sarcopenia. Muscle mass is typically best measured with DEXA, so the device that you might get your bone mineral density test done as we get older, particularly women post-menopause might get them done semi-regularly because unfortunately females are at greater risk of osteoporosis than men. But again, men are definitely getting it more so these days as well. And then physical performance typically assessed either if that's sit to stand or a walking speed test. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily matter as much to a point what your muscle mass or your strength is per se, but it's really what you can do, your physical performance. Can you get out of a chair? And can you walk at a reasonable speed? Those two things are really instrumental in performing what we call instrumental activities of daily living that enable you to be independent, not need a carer, and perform and do the things that bring meaning to your life. And that can be as simple as going into the garden, perhaps. You might not really want to get out of your actual property, but yeah, just getting out into the garden, doing a bit of gardening, listening to the birds. But if you can't get out of a chair and walk, particularly if you've got a few stairs or things like that, or if it's a sloped property, you're sort of stuck in your lounge chair or bedroom looking out the window to that at best. So by maintaining strength and muscle mass, the ability to walk and get out of a chair is improved. And again, ultimately, your ability to walk faster and to walk longer are improved as well. So even something like crossing a road that has two lanes each direction. Some people have sarcopenia, so the threshold for walking speed is 0.8 meters per second, which doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But if you think of that, think of an 8 meter distance and you have 10 seconds to walk that distance. So that's basically across two lanes of traffic. And if it takes you more than 10 seconds, you're not going to reach that side of the road or the island in between before the red light for the walking goes off, goes on, and cars are now coming. So simple things like that speed of walking and how fatigued you might get with even walking a couple of 100 meters, again, really limits your capacity to do activities outside your home.
Wow, I had not thought of the walking across the traffic lights before. You've explained how long you have to get across. For some
Mm.
people, as we age, yeah, that's not.
And unfortunately, even like we've got walking aids like walking sticks, walking frames, etc. But again, anyone who uses a walking frame, the speed that they walk at is even further reduced. And their ability to carry a simple thing like a handbag or something is really difficult. You can't push a trolley of groceries or anything with your walking frame. So all those things that we take for granted. I don't have a can of tomatoes and some pasta to cook dinner or something. I'll just race up to the shops. You can't do that on your own because of the distance that you might park from the actual store might be hundreds of meters. There might be lots of people again. So yeah, all those things, getting out of a chair, if that's exhausting you, walking 100 meters exhaust you, that level of socialization and getting out of your house is seriously reduced.
Yeah, it's so important to think about because it affects our quality of life and, as you said before, our independence. So, at what age does sarcopenia typically begin and what factors influence its progression?
Well, I suppose many things it's a continuum. So probably after around the age of 35 to 40, things physically often start some level of decline. And many of the studies that we've done haven't been longitudinal. Like we have, it's difficult to track people over their entire lifespan. So they're often cross-sectional that we compare groups of 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, etc. So those studies aren't quite as strong, but typically the decline maybe accelerates in the 60s to 70s. But that window in that sort of middle age range between 40 to 60 can really set yourself up for either a functional, healthy, well older age where you can be like those grey nomads. I've got some friends starting to move into that space and actually loving it, that you're out there, you're doing all these things, or it can, in essence, set yourself up for a life of aged care requirements and walking frames and carers coming in, early entry into residential aged care, etc.
What are some of the most effective strategies, as you said, probably in that 40 to 60-year-old or even earlier for
Mhm.
delaying or slowing down sarcopenia?
Realistically, it's maintaining that muscle mass and strength and physical function. So cognitive function can also be an issue that increases disability, requires residential aged care. We still don't quite know what causes dementias. And while exercise can have some benefit, yeah, still a lot more work needs to be done in that space. So for physical function, particularly as you get in your 40s or 50s, if you start finding some physical activity just a bit more challenging, climbing stairs or something, like even that is a simple sign of getting out of a chair. Walking's a bit more out of breath. It might mean that resistance training is going to be really important. So even if you find like the sleeves on your shirts or something like that are there's a lot more room. Like again, it might be indicative of muscle mass loss. So some doctors are now talking about, again, simple things that as we walk into a visit, if you're walking slowly, if you get out of a chair a bit more challenging, again, those are just simple signs that resistance training is probably something you need to do now before that decline becomes even more abrupt. While we can still rehabilitate and re-able older people who are quite physically limited in their physical function. So even one of my PhD students, Samantha Thien, did a great study in some residential aged care facilities here on the Gold Coast, where older adults in aged care, average age of about 85, could not stand up from a chair with their hands on their chest. So they really needed to use their arms and legs. So it's almost like in the gym situation, doing a squat and a dip at the same time, using all those muscles. And at the end of a 12-week exercise program, twice a week, they were averaging 7 sit to stands.
Oh, that's awesome.
Their walking speed also increased substantially. So these individuals and we know in aged care, the amount of time they spend, some studies have indicated less than 30 minutes per day is in standing and walking activities.
Less than 30 minutes.
Yeah. And that's combined standing and walking. A lot of that just reflects the fact that these people, that sort of setting, many of them are there because their physical function is not at the level they can look after themselves. So improving that leg strength in the sit to chair, improving their walking speed, then enables them to get out of their chair, go to the bathroom when they need to, go and visit a friend 6, 7, 8 rooms around the corner, spend more time doing activities, and just being more alive. We see some great examples of older people competing in sports like powerlifting or CrossFit or gymnastics or things like that, doing what the general population think is, that's freaky, that's amazing. And it is to a point, but again, it's indicative of what the human body can still do at these ages. So instead of thinking of them as perhaps unobtainable sort of like Olympic gold medalists in terms of a sport, it would be good to see that as more of a just an expected aspect of life. So we can still do that, and not everyone wants to aspire necessarily to do that, but even two resistance training sessions per week for perhaps no more than 30 minutes can still give you lots of those benefits. So realistically, an hour of exercise spread across 2 sessions, if progressed over time, can definitely improve those physical functions. And again, the research is very strong in that regard.
So speaking a bit more about that, loss of muscle strength, what other things like can maintaining the muscle help protect us from things like falls or even other diseases? What are the implications?
Yeah, so we might start with falls. At the moment, the most predominant form of exercise or physical activity promoted is aerobic activities like walking. And again, most people can do that in the community. There's very little cost. Unfortunately, as we age and perhaps lose our balance abilities, particularly in winter where there might be slippery pathways and things like that in our communities, older adults who've got osteoporosis and poor balance, if you recommend walking to them, that will increase their risk of falls. So we do need to be careful if someone's osteoporotic and has poor balance. We need to focus our exercise on probably three things. That progressive resistance training, again, is crucial to increase strength and muscle mass and function, but we also need to incorporate balance training and also probably some gait, which is walking, retraining as well. So if it's a motor skill that hasn't been practiced that much because of that physical decline or chronic diseases, again, physiotherapists, exercise physiologists, etc., are often well placed to assist people, in essence, to relearn how to walk effectively. And by increasing the strength and balance, those might be some of the capacities that were lost that were undermining that person's walking ability. There can also be quite a loss of confidence in walking and an increased fear of falls, particularly if they have had falls themselves or some of their loved ones and friends, particularly if those outcomes have been quite serious. And again, if you're anxious about walking, that again is going to increase the risk of falls as well.
I've only recently realized how important it is, especially as we age over 60, to try and prevent falls.
Hmm.
Could you just talk about that just briefly? What the impact can be for someone over 60 if they have a fall? What can that mean for their quality of life?
Yeah, so particularly if you are osteoporotic and the prevalence of osteoporosis in, if we say women over 60 is, it's getting pretty high now in many parts of Australia and other developed countries. So if you do have a fall, if you fall, you often will put a hand out. So your wrist is highly likely to fracture at that point. So again, if you almost certainly you'll put out your dominant hand, and that then means all the fine motor skills, the activities of daily living that require that hand to function, that's now in a cast for a month or two. So brushing your teeth, getting dressed, doing your hair, preparing food might be almost impossible to do. Like try to write or brush your hair or brush your teeth with your non-preferred hand. It's not fun. It takes a long time and your hair or your face won't look the same either. So that's an issue. If you fracture your hip or your spine, that's even more of an issue. If you fracture your hip, regaining walking ability is going to be massively compromised. Regardless of where you fracture, the muscles around that side of the body are going to deteriorate and atrophy, as in reduce. The muscle strength reduces. And again, if that's around the hip and spine, all those important muscles like your glutes, your quads, hamstrings, lower back muscles, etc., are going to atrophy. And that again can have massive impacts on those functional activities that we just mentioned before. And since it's more difficult to regain muscle mass as we age, that again can set up that sort of spiral into disability. And unfortunately, particularly as you get more into your 70s, if you don't have a lot of body weight, if your muscle mass is quite low and you don't actually have sufficient fat stores, that can actually cause early mortality.
I heard something like a stat over 65, if you break your femur, is that the largest bone,
Yep,
or your hip, you have a 15 to 30% chance of being dead within 12 months.
yep.
It's just, yeah. So if it's something that we can do a bit of exercise a week to try and maintain or even build a little bit of muscle as we're aging, it's a small investment for a big payoff, I think.
It is. So balance and gait training aren't as easy to perhaps, there's not as much research out there on what is the optimal approach. But even something my wife suggested I do, I was recovering from a knee, got some knee degeneration that I have to work around a little bit. So after an issue, that right leg, the balance was definitely affected. So she'd seen something on social media. The challenge was to put your shoe and socks on while standing on one leg. So my right leg has always been a little bit less well balanced than the left. So doing that every day, so it's almost every day, it's probably at least two pairs of shoes I'm wearing. So that's putting them on, putting them off, that little bit of practice. And even at the Positive Aging Summit that I went to a couple of weeks ago, one of the presenters just asked us to stand upright, then close our eyes in a regular stance. Some people were swaying around a bit, then do something called a tandem stance, which is where your feet are heel to toe in a straight line. Do that if we could. And if we could then do that, close your eyes again. So even those simple activities where we close our eyes, take away that visual control of our balance, many people as we get into our 40s and 50s will start to actually feel that decline. And again, if we don't sort of address that as we start to get into our 60s and 70s, that decline in balance, particularly when we can't see well. So again, there's a higher prevalence of falls in darker conditions where we can't physically control our balance or perhaps see some hazards in front of us. So again, as we get older, you might need to go to the toilet during nighttime, and maybe you got a partner in bed next to you. Don't turn the light on because you don't want to wake them up. You then trip over on the way to the bathroom or coming back
Something as simple as that.
because someone left a pair of shoes on the floor, or if you've got kids or grandkids living with you, there's some toys on the floor or something, or the bathroom was still a bit wet or something and you slip over there. So little simple things like that, again, can be that sort of hip fracture. It's not highly prevalent, but again, if you fall in a bad way on a hard surface, it's a bit like a king hit that we talk about in pubs and that, land on your head badly. That can even result in traumatic brain injury or even death as well. So falls on hard surfaces or downstairs can, as you say, be lethal within 12 months or perhaps even almost straight away with just that sort of fall. So maintaining a balance, being careful about the environments we live in, and having that physical capacity to maybe regain balance if you do trip. So particularly something like a trip, younger people are normally able to maintain balance. Their nervous system realizes that very quickly. They can swing a leg forward. That swinging leg then has to take the weight of the body and the momentum. So almost like a fast bowler or a javelin thrower, that front leg that they place before bowling or releasing, the stresses going through that front leg are really high. And if you've got good strength and the ability to move quickly, you can get that leg out far enough in front of you to maintain balance. So even things like a lunge that we can do in a gym or at home, stepping forward, taking the weight on that leg and then pushing back. If you are able to do lunges as you get into your 50s, 60s, and 70s, that again represents a safety net for that trip related fall that you will probably have the function to reduce the risk of falling, maintain your balance. And if you do fall, it'll be less of an impact than if you don't have that function. So again, you look at some older dancers who are in these lunge positions quite frequently. And again, the risk of them falling is very minimal because of their amazing balance and the strength and the strong bones they'll still have as they continue to dance for recreation, or in some cases for competition as well, or for an occupation. Like some of these 60 and 70-year-old sort of rock and roll dancers who are still performing, again, amazing function, the looks on their faces when they're doing it, they're getting paid to do something they love, and the health and well-being they're getting from that, the people they meet. Again, what could be a better way to live?
We shouldn't have to think that just as we get older, that life is going to be just about deterioration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's things you can do to still have a good quality of life and still do the things you enjoy, as you said.
And one thing I suppose our developed countries have lost a little bit compared to, I suppose, more First Nations and Indigenous groups is that respect of older people. Like that, the elders in those communities is a term of respect. whereas the word elderly can be in our communities construed as a negative word in many ways. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely changed even just from I'm the same age as you. So when we were kids, you were taught to respect your elders and you did look up to them differently. And like you say, the current culture is, oh, you're just old. What do you know? You're old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need another cultural shift. You mentioned a good point there about the increase of falls when it's dark. It's just another reminder to have your vision checked regularly, especially as you're aging, because that's if your eyesight's deteriorating, that can be an increased risk for falls.
Hmm.
What other things should people be aware of? Their other health issues should they be checking to try and prevent the falls?
Unfortunately, there are so many different risk factors for falls. So we can think of them maybe if we start intrinsic, those are the things inherent to you as a person. So you mentioned things like vision, bifocal glasses can be an issue, particularly going downstairs that might not be clearly delineated. So that's why many stairs now have sort of high visibility strips on each edge, a host of neuropathies. So if you're type 2 diabetic, you might lose sensation in your feet. You don't have that good sensory awareness coming from the feet and the ankles, which is really important. A host of medications can again affect balance or aspects of our sensory system important in the control of balance. So those are just the things inherent to you. A host of diseases, Parkinson's disease, as an example, most people think of as a tremor, but it also massively negatively impacts your balance and your walking capacity. You've then got the environmental factors around you. So we said things like poorly lit, slippery surfaces, obstacles in front of you are some factors as well. So and then there's people or other things in your environment moving around you that you're not controlling. So one of the challenges I think we're facing in our community, and something that's going to get a lot more discussion, I suppose, is like e-scooters and things like that, where again, it's great to walk around your neighborhood on the footpaths, but how even in our early 50s, how often have we already experienced now that we've just been missed by someone flying through at maybe 40 to 50 kilometers per hour on an e-scooter or device? So there's all those things that can influence falls. A dog running out in front of you, etc. So sounds scary, but at the end of the day, my personal belief is everything in life is a little bit risky. You're not handing your body back in at the end of life like you've hired a book from the library where it should be in the same condition as you took it out. So make the most of everything and live every day to the fullest. And everything that you do has some inherent risk. But again, those memories, those experiences you have, to me, I think outweigh those risks. So if you are at risk of falls, do those things that you can in terms of balance, get those medical checks, as you mentioned, from your doctor to maybe screen out any of those things that might be an issue. And unfortunately, even things like polypharmacy, where you can be on a range of medications, sometimes can increase that risk. So if you feel you've been on too many medications for a long time, or your parents or older relatives, you go, mom, dad, why are you taking 12 different medications? Maybe just get them to go back to their doctor and get those medications reviewed. Are all of these things actually necessary at the moment? And can we gradually perhaps reduce dosages or even terminate some of those medications that may no longer be required?
I'm not sure what age it starts, but the government subsidises a medical professional to come out even to your home if you can't get to the doctor and
Hmm.
assess all your medications and
Yeah.
yeah.
And again, that can be really important because we know as we age, the number of chronic diseases we typically have will increase as well. And unfortunately, every medication, additional one that you take, the potential interactions and side effects becomes amplified. And that's just an unfortunate aspect of pharmacology, that it's difficult for studies to, in essence, examine the outcomes for all these different things interacting at the same time. And realistically, because not everyone's the same, the effects that it might have on your body to my body, even if we're taking the same relative amount of medications to normalize for a different body weight, we still might have quite different outcomes. And people of different ethnicities might be even more different for just some different genetic reasons, again, that we don't fully understand.
Thanks so much for joining us for this important conversation with Dr. Justin Keogh. The conversation went longer than we expected. There was just so much valuable insight in covering important topics, and we've decided to release it in 2 separate episodes. So next time in episode 5, we'll get into the practical side of things, what resistance training really involves, how often we need to be doing it to maintain strength as we age, and how small bursts of movement, called exercise snacking, can make a big impact over time. We'll also explore the role of adequate protein, how good physical function can help us maintain independence as we age, and inspiring highlights from the Positive Aging Summit. So if you're looking for simple, realistic ways to support your body across your whole lifespan, be sure to tune into episode 5 with Dr. Justin Keogh on the Mind Your Being podcast. Until next time, please be kind to yourself and mind your being.